years ago, we should have started research that would have ended this problem and gotten ahead of it. And instead, we've been lied to. Our science has not happened. This is not an anti-science film. This is a film demanding that real science takes place. That's what this is about. Instead, our science has lied to us. And it's quieted and silenced the people that have been telling us the truth. Hundreds of thousands of parents across the world have all told the same story about a vaccine that took their perfectly healthy child and ruined their lives, usually forever. Well, they're not going to be silenced anymore. That's what VAXXED is here. We're stopping that right now. So I was, with everybody that has a vaccine-injured family member, will you just please stand up for a moment? This is a tragedy. You are the real heroes. Nothing making a movie, traveling all the country, everything we're doing is not nearly as hard as what these folks deal with every single day. And I want you to just think about that moment. You have a perfectly healthy child running around your house, laughing, giggling, smiling, maybe saying, "I love you, Mommy, I love you, Daddy." And then you go to your doctor who you trust. It's telling you vaccines are perfectly safe. And you do what you're supposed to do in our society based on the great scientific institution, the CDC, that was supposed to have been doing a job to protect you. You do what you're told on the time you're supposed to do it, and you lose your child in an instant. All of your dreams, everything you planned on that child, what could happen, what they could be, what you were going to do, how you're going to feed them. All of the great diet you were on and the vitamins you were taking, out the window, lost, pointless because of a lie. And then beyond that tragedy, you go to your doctor and you say, "This vaccine has changed my child. They're not the same." And your doctor looks you in the eye and says, "Oh, that wasn't the vaccine. That's a coincidence. That's a coincidence that's happened to 200,000 people, but I'm still going to call it a coincidence." And if you continue to question it, say, no, I'm sure it's not a coincidence. I know my child was healthy. I know they were developing well, and now they're not the same. Then you hear, "Would you like to speak to a therapist about that?" And if that doesn't shut you up, you can expect a visit from Child Protective Services. And now you're going to find yourself fighting to hold on to this child that your health agencies just ruined. This is happening every single day now in the United States of America. Is that the country we all studied in history class? Is that who our founding fathers dreamed us to be? Is this what we are supposed to be? Is this freedom? Is this life? Is this the United States, we the people, for the people? Or have we let a corporation take over our government, force mandatory products upon us that are injuring and destroying our children? Are we just going to sit here and watch this happen? Are we going to let this lie continue over and over? At what point does America wake up? At what point do we turn our televisions off and say, "You know what? I've had it. I've had it. They stole my house. They stole the middle class. They keep lying. They keep poisoning my water, my air, and they don't seem to care. And now they're poisoning my children." Are we going to stand up, or are we going to sit back and complain that we lost the United States of the people for the people? That's what's happening here. That's what you're looking at here. And for all those parents that just stood up, know that you've been heard. Know that we've heard you. And Polly and I and Andy and everyone involved here, and I hope everyone in this room, will continue to tell your story and let the world know this is happening. And we are going to stop it. Thank you for being here.
I always hate following Dal. I can't tell you how long it's taken me to get here, Vegas. I'm so pleased. I'm so sorry I missed the first Q&A. I had planes cancelled all over the place. It's only taken 12 hours. But anyway, I'm here. And also on another note, Andy's so sorry that he's not here with you tonight. He's actually doing really important work back in Austin that's going to back up everything we're doing here. So trust us when we say he's working really hard on behalf of us all, but he's just back in Austin doing that. On a serious note though, I cannot tell you, since we've started this tour of Vax, you know, you've seen my story, Billy had the MMR. The amount of parents that have told us their stories when we opened it up to vaccine injury. We are seeing the amount of babies that have died at 4 months after the DTaP, incredible. The amount of babies that have died after the HIP, incredible. The amount of babies and children that are dying, teenage girls after the Gardasil, crippled, in so much pain, and have died. We're hearing from the military, we're hearing about the pain and the forced vaccination that they're getting, and we're getting really angry, all of us are. So angry that we've bought a bus and we are going to keep going, and we're going to travel all around America, and we will not stop until we've heard all your stories. We've put a stop to the SB 277 and there are no more mandated vaccines in America, and we are committed to doing that, and we will start on the 1st of August.
So this story is about Dr. William Thompson, a whistleblower. We would not be here. This man has finally made it so that all of these parents have been telling their stories and been called liars. We now know they're not. One of our top scientists had said they're not lying. And I'm calling out to every whistleblower out there. You know you are working these systems. You know you're lying. Now is the time to step up. We're really lucky tonight because one of those people has stepped up. She's referred to as the Utah whistleblower, and much of her story has been online a little bit, but we're really honored tonight. I just met Judy Zimmerman earlier tonight. Please come down. This is a real American hero. Thank you for being here. So, just a little bit, she's been in court for, I think, a couple years, but they tried to obviously kick her case out of court, as they always do. And recently, the judge just ruled that this case is going to go forward. So they're not going to stop the Utah whistleblower. So just real quickly, what is, and I think this is the stronger microphone, I'm going to give this one. What sort of is your case about, as much as you can tell us? I know that there's a lot of, classified issues around it, but just very quickly, what you worked for the CDC, you've been a part of the CDC. Tell me about the culture and what that's like.
So I was a federal grant awardee for Utah to track the prevalence of autism spectrum disorders in our state. The lawsuit itself is rather complicated. But as it relates to the work Dale's doing, Paul is doing, it has to do with research fraud, research integrity, privacy issues that I started asking questions about. In addition, I was very interested in looking at environmental issues. Because of the changes that we were seeing in our state with children with autism spectrum disorder. What I was faced with in terms of the question Dale specifically asked is the culture at the CDC was that despite the findings of big increases, the story was, it's not an epidemic, we're just better at identifying people with autism. And it was so frustrating to see it become an emergency and energy focused at what was really causing this.
What happens when someone working for the CDC, a scientist like yourself, says, you know what, I have a theory since this is obviously a brand new disease that's sort of just appeared, and maybe environmental issues may be coming towards it, or just simply, I'd like to do some research looking at vaccines. What happens if you're a scientist and you make that statement and you are working for the CDC? Do they celebrate it? Do they say, yeah, we have plenty of scientists, go off and take a look at that, see what happens?
You don't mention the B word. It's professional suicide to even in the broad sense of looking at environmental factors, including vaccines. So for example, I had done a study that actually got presented at an international autism meeting having to do with air pollution and certain chemicals and where pregnant mothers lived. And I was actually written up for talking to a reporter on a study that I had gotten quite a bit of recognition for doing.
So you get admonished if you decide to look at any cause outside of, I would guess, genetics. They want to just say it's all genetics.
Yes, so I was told it lacks scientific merit.
That's science in America, folks. I mean, that's scary. You have to understand, when I got involved, I left the doctors and got involved with this film, suddenly they say, oh, you're anti-science. The exact opposite is true. I said it the other day at the rally. Science, the absolute basis, the foundation of science is to always ask questions, to never stop asking questions. Consensus does not exist in science. Consensus is not science. If we only relied on consensus, there would never be a Galileo, there would never be an Einstein, there would never be an evolving science. In science class in my high school, they said you must always continue to ask questions. Nothing, science is never settled. And what do we hear when we look at the story of vaccines and autism? From Sanjay Gupta and every other supposed science in our news? The science is settled. That's the least scientific statement you can make. How are we accepting that? Where's American exceptionalism? How are we going to be the great future? How are we going to bring forward the great new sciences and the great new evolution if we're going to remain in the dark ages? You see it. We are not allowed. Our scientists are not allowed to ask appropriate questions. Journalism is dying because it won't ask the questions. And now science is dying because it won't ask the questions and can't. We're in trouble. It's a crisis. Let's take some questions. We've got, try and keep it down to 30 seconds. If you have a major statement to make about